Today we are working on the CER. In case this is the first time you're seeing it, CER stands for claim, evidence, and reasoning. So claim is a statement that responds to the question that's asked right over here. We need to have a definitive claim that answers it. We don't say I think, we don't say it might be, we just say or I predict. It's implied by just saying a strong, firm statement about what it is. Evidence is facts that we've learned throughout the course of the year so far. Facts that we've learned that could be from your notes, or it could be from an observation that we found where it's just data that we've collected. And then lastly, reasoning is we're kind of making like a story out of the evidence, right? So if this is a cold hard fact, how does that cold hard fact relate to the actual claim that we are making? So it's like a story wrapping it all up. So let's go through it right now. The question is, what effects do the moon and sun have on us here on Earth? So we're not going to just we have to answer in complete sentences, right? So we can say the moon and the sun affect, right? So, and then how Earth by, and now if we think it has to be something where it has the moon, the sun, and the Earth all together. So for example, if you said rotation, while rotation obviously happens, the moon is not involved with rotation. Same thing for the seasons, right? It would not be an acceptable one to do that because the moon is not involved. But things that are involved would be things like the tides, eclipses, and the phases of the moon. All right, so as you go through this, okay, something like this you can have pretty much identical, but as you go along, I want you to rewrite everything in your own words. Doesn't have to be 100% in your own words, but enough. Write it in the way you would say it, okay? Like the way that you would actually explain it using words that you understand. So how else can we say this? The moon and the sun are affected by, or affect Earth, right? The Earth gets affected by the moon and the sun, by the following things, and then list them however you want to say it, but this is the right answer right here. What we're going to do is we're going to try to come up with at least one sentence per of these three examples that we have in the claim. So let's start with the tides. So how about this? The sun and the moon cause us to have both spring and neap tides. So that'll just be one. That's just a fact that we've learned, right? So there's one right there. But the next one we have was eclipses. So we can say the sun and the moon cause us to see solar and lunar eclipses. And then lastly, we can say the sun's light on the moon cause us to see different phases. So now we have one piece of three facts that we learned. And now what we need to do is we need to explain them all in more detail. Again, feel free to rewrite it. There's so many different ways you could say these exact same things. We have spring and neap tides due to the sun and the moon. We could see a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse based on the positioning of the sun and the moon in alignment. And we see several different phases of the moon depending on where the moon is in its revolution. So let's pick the first one and go into more detail. The sun and the moon cause us to have both spring and neap tides. So we should have two sentences to explain in more detail what this is and how this affects over here. So what we need to do is we need to explain the spring and neap tides. Maybe we give one sentence to each of them. So how about this? Spring tides are when the Earth, moon, and sun are all in alignment and gravity is at its strongest. So, of course, in this sentence, we explain spring tides. We're supporting this idea right here, and it also encompasses the fact that the Earth, moon, and sun are all there, which is what we said right there. So we could also, if we want to say, this causes high tides. You don't have to include that one, but that's just extra detail right there. But now let's get a second sentence over here talking about neap tides. Neap tides happen when the Earth, moon, and sun form a 90-degree angle, and then tides are weaker. So that's a good one right there. You can say form a right triangle, form a right angle. It's not enough to say that neap tides happen when the Earth, moon, and sun are not aligned, because that does not always perfectly equal a neap tide. It is more accurate to say 90-degree angle. So now we're done with this one right here. We're done with the first piece of evidence. Let's go on to the second one. Again, we have two things. We have the solar and lunar eclipses. Let's do a sentence for each of them. Solar eclipses happen when the moon comes between the sun and the earth and the shadow falls on earth. And similarly, lunar eclipses occur when the moon is in the shadow of the earth, producing a blood moon. You don't have to include that last part. I'm just adding a little extra detail right there. So again, when we're talking about how is Earth affected, sometimes it's just visually seeing different things up in the sky. Sometimes it's just visibly feeling different types of tides that are happening. And the last visual event is, of course, the different phase of the moon that we see. So it's important that we know that the sun reflects light off of the moon to the earth. The moon is therefore always half lit up. However, the moon revolves around the earth, causing us to see the light in different phases. So again, all of our examples, tides, eclipses, and phases, all happen because of the moon and the earth and the sun all working together on it. So what you could do is you can pause this, you can write down what you need to make sure everything's all set up. Again, you should be slightly rewording everything to make it into your own understanding, but when you're done, you can turn this in because this is going to be a graded assignment. However, before you do so, I also need you to copy and paste slide 6 from my digital portfolio into yours. And then what I want you to do is I want you to copy and paste all of the information into here. And the only way to do it is to do it line by line, because I want to show you what happens if you don't. If you just highlight all of this stuff over here and hit control, and then over here you hit paste, watch what happens. It looks horrible. None of it makes sense. So I'm going to undo that one. I don't want it to look like that. Instead, take the time, go through. You can triple click 1, 2, 3, copy it, and paste it into there. Bam. That part is done. Now we go to the claim. Paste that here. Go to the evidence. And finally, the reasoning. You might notice that, okay, it's no longer working because of that, but here's what we can do. We can combine some of these things. And if that still did not work, I mean, this works now for me, but you can always just like highlight it all and maybe make it a little bit smaller if you need to make it fit as well. All right. Now, I have a picture right here that I made for you, but in the future, you should always have your own pictures. This picture is, of course, an eclipse that's taking place right over here. This would be the solar eclipse. So that's why a solar eclipse picture looks right. This slide is now done. We have a slide title. We have everything written on there. It's all in your own words. We have a picture. This slide is done. And once you do this, you are completely done with this assignment. All right. Thank you very much.